Camilla and William have a complicated relationship. According to author Christopher Anderson, he tolerates her. Camilla has always been a little afraid of William.
According to a recent leaked insider tip, a powder keg has erupted in the most unlikely spot, Tom Parker Bowles's Gloucestershire manor, Camilla's son. In a room sealed for years, workers uncovered an antique ebony box, harboring something to rip the royal family's curtain of silence, a yellowed notebook, and a red waxed envelope stamped with two chilling words, William. Camilla sniffed the odd scent before any official report. Her gaze swept Tom's drawing room, probing for traces of a past ghost. Overnight, Tom's name echoed in every whisper along the marble corridors. They say beneath the red wax lie words to snap the noose tightening around the crown, that someone met William in secret by night, that a recording somewhere is changing hands. What happens when truth collides with power, when Diana's legacy ignites a brutal family war, and as the box opens before the air, does it whisper a dying breath or sound the alarm for a purge? Tom Parker Bowles's private estate lay tucked away in the tranquil Gloucestershire countryside, a stark contrast to the brooding grey stone fortresses of the royal family. It rarely saw its true master. Tom dropped in only a handful of times a year, leaving the sprawling property in the capable hands of a loyal staff and a steadfast butler. Time and dampness had taken their toll, causing a section of the drawing room's guest sleeping quarters to crumble badly. Though it was just a minor flaw, the butler insisted on calling in a maintenance crew for a thorough fix, lest the stain spread and mar the house's understated elegance. Michael Harrow, a skilled labourer with sharp eyes and calloused hands, was tasked with prying away the aged plaster. As the specialised spade chipped away the final layer of plaster, Michael expected the dull thud of wood or brick. Instead, a hollow, icy void yawned open, unexpected and unnerving. His heart hammered not from fear, but from the dizzying vertigo of brushing against something forbidden. He widened the gap with care, and a musty rush of old paper dust and forgotten years spilled out. There in the heart of that cramped little chamber, perched on a simple wooden plinth, sat an exquisitely carved ebony box. It was a relic of classical heft, its wood grain and fern motifs etched by what seemed the hand of a royal artisan. Michael's fingers trembled as they brushed it. Unlatching the lock, he held his breath. Inside, arranged with meticulous care, lay two artifacts. The first was a leather-bound diary, its pages yellowed and spine frayed, filled with the elegant, familiar script of the late Princess Diana. The second resting atop it was a thick cream envelope, sealed with a crisp red wax crest of the royal insignia, and scrawled across its face in bold black ink, just one name, William. Michael skimmed the opening pages of the diary, and a chill bolt shot down his spine. Beneath that graceful hand were stark confessions of Diana's soul-crushing loneliness, the inner torment of royal life, and most harrowing of all pointed accusations leveled straight at Camilla. Diana had documented it all in vivid detail, as if laying out living proof Camilla's manipulations of charity funds, shadowy deals with the press, to smear Diana's name, and opaque financial dealings that abused power within the palace walls. This wasn't petty romantic gossip. These were grave political and fiscal scandals, chronicled by the very witness to their birth. Old memories surged back sharp, as if they'd happened yesterday. His father, the devoted bodyguard who had served Diana until her last breath, had once told him in a voice steady as stone, "If anything truly awful ever comes to light, trust William. He's got his mother's heart." Oh. That spectral parting shot, uttered by a loyal man long gone, now rang like a command. Michael's allegiance wasn't to the estate's protocols, but to Diana's memory and the truth she'd fought to safeguard. He made his choice. This box couldn't go back to the butler or to anyone tangled in the current royal web. In the dim secrecy of the hidden room, Michael stowed the box with precision, patching the false wall as best he could for now. He slipped into a shadowed corner, fished out an old powered-down phone from its hiding place, slotted in the battery, and fired off a terse, encrypted message from an anonymous account, one that stirred a slumbering fragment of the past. "I have something that belongs to your mother buried in Gloucestershire. Utmost urgency." William was deep in a routine meeting in London when his private phone buzzed. At first he meant to ignore it, but the cryptic subject line froze him in his seat. "Belongs to your mother." As he read the name etched into his soul, all the blood in his body seemed to rush to his heart, pounding with a fierce, aching throb. This was destiny's summons, unlocking a bolted chapter in his mother's life. He excused himself from the meeting on the spot, his mind already racing ahead of the clock, plotting the most covert way to reach Michael before the ghosts of old power caught wind of the disturbance. Amid the whirlwind, he hadn't yet touched the red-waxed envelope bearing his name, the one cradling an untold secret. Was it a final testament, or a roadmap to an inevitable war? Meanwhile, at the estate, Camilla had swung by to visit Tom Parker Bowles on a whim while passing through the area. She sipped her tea in the main drawing room, her posture relaxed, but her gaze ever the predator's, scanning the space with icy precision. The butler entered with a deferential bow, reporting on the maintenance work. "Madam, there was a minor issue with the plaster in the guest sleeping quarters, but it's been sorted swiftly." To him it was just routine upkeep. But at the words plaster and guest sleeping quarters, a flicker of a frown crossed Camilla's face. That was Tom's room, or rather the one just beside it that he seldom used. An invisible chill seeped in. The instincts of a woman versed in machinations and cover-ups whispered that something untoward had been unearthed. She didn't know what, but the unease took root at once in her razor-sharp mind. The needle on the compass of peril had twitched. The clandestine rendezvous between William and Michael Harrow unfolded beneath the serene night sky of the countryside, a world apart from the tempest raging in the prince's chest. William could feel the tangible weight of history and hidden truths cradled in the ebony box he clutched close. Once he'd ensured Michael's safety and sworn him to unbreakable silence, William slipped back to London, where he could confront his mother's legacy in solitude and security. He set the box down on the oak desk, unlocking it with deliberate slowness and drawing in a ragged breath. The faint, musty scent of the aged diary carried Diana's very essence, nearly choking him with its intimacy. He turned the pages with a raw ache, absorbing lines etched with isolation, betrayal's sting, and the relentless fight of a woman backed into a corner. His mother's private agonies, the media's merciless grip, the emotional exile carved fresh scars into his soul. Yet it was the cream envelope sealed with the royal wax and inscribed with his name in solemn script that knotted his nerves tightest. With a silver letter opener, he cleaved the seal with exquisite care, unwilling to even a whisper of the paper, a gesture born of reverence and dread in equal measure. As the wax cracked, William eased out a single neatly folded sheet. Diana's handwriting here diverged from the diary's meandering flow. It was incisive, unyielding, laced with urgent warning. He pored over every word, each one landing like an iron blow. The letter's revelations transcended personal scandals or romantic wounds. In crystalline precision, Diana recounted what she'd witnessed firsthand: Camilla diverting a colossal sum from an official charity fund under then Prince Charles's patronage, now the king's, into an offshore shell company's account. A wave of disorientation crashed over William, igniting into icy fury. He'd braced for heartbreaking disclosures of marital infidelity, but this Camilla wasn't merely the other woman in his parents' fractured union. She was a corrosive force burrowing into and commandeering the monarchy's financial veins. Diana laid bare how Camilla was weaving a private empire of influence, leveraging royal prestige to amass fortunes and puppeteer even the loftiest decisions. The war within William crested to a shattering peak. This was no longer a quest to vindicate his mother's heart. It was a corruption probe that could topple the monarchy's very pillars. Faint rumors from years past flickered to life. The unexplained charity shortfalls, royal initiatives stalled without cause, courtiers ascending to unexplained wealth. Scattered fragments now snapped into a damning mosaic courtesy of this letter. William teetered on the brink of a political chasm, where truth might raise it all, his family included. He bowed his head, wrestling his heaving breaths to heal. His gaze locked on the letter's closing passage, underlined in Diana's fierce, emphatic stroke. William, if the day comes when you read this, know it's no burden. It's a duty. You must stop her, not just for me, but for the crown's integrity. You are truth's last hope. Diana's voice, though mere ink on parchment, thundered in his mind like a sacred decree. He gripped the letter until his knuckles bleached white. Hesitation evaporated. Fear receded. In their stead rose a steely, unyielding resolve. He knew he couldn't let this truth fester in the shadows of a fabricated wall. William rose and crossed to the grand window overlooking the fog-shrouded garden. He'd grown up within these walls, but now he pierced the glamour's facade to the deceit beneath. The battle ahead would brook no mercy. It pitted him not just against Camilla, but the ossified machine she twisted to her will. Clutching the letter, his face etched with anguish and iron will, William made his vow. From this moment, he would shed the skin of the dutiful Prince William, heir to the throne in quiet repose, and become the fierce guardian of his mother's memory and the United Kingdom's transparency. The hush of the Gloucestershire estate fractured under a glacial rage. Tom Parker Bowles, no stranger to the whirl of bustling social whirlwinds and raucous gatherings, returned home only to stumble into an unnatural disarray. The butler, trembling in his deference, relayed the grim details. The worker Michael Harrow had vanished like smoke right after finishing the repairs, and worse, the secret chamber behind the plaster wall had been pried open with brutal haste. Tom, though ignorant of the ebony box's precise contents, grasped the peril at once. That room was an ancient secret his mother Camilla had guarded with ironclad vigilance. Camilla arrived in a flash. She needed no interrogation. Tom's face, etched with bewilderment and dread, betrayed it all. She swept into the estate like a winter gale, trailing an undercurrent of peril. No maternal warmth softened her edges, only a merciless inquisition. Her dagger-sharp gaze pinned Tom, compelling him to recount every fragment, from the worker's arrival to the artifact's eerie disappearance. Tom felt himself torn asunder. He loved his mother, yet her endless webs of intrigue and manipulation had always left him uneasy. He'd long shunned the royal orbit and its power games, carving out his own sliver of peace. But now he was yanked back into the mire he'd fought to flee. He knew full well that anything Diana had left behind and Camilla had buried could detonate, obliterating the lives of everyone it ensnared. Sensing the hesitation and torment in her son, Camilla pivoted to a crueler stratagem. She didn't bellow or berate. Instead, she painted a vivid apocalypse of their family's ruination. She hammered home that any exposure of royal financial improprieties or her media machinations would drag Tom under with her. He and his children would be forever branded as accomplices in a corrupt reign, their heads bowed in perpetual shame across British society. Her eyes conveyed the ultimatum with crystalline clarity. Silence was no longer an option. Complicity was compulsory. Before the specter of total dynastic collapse, Tom's feeble resistance crumbled. He felt ensnared by invisible manacles. He'd wanted no part in this, but Camilla had deftly recast him as her unwilling confederate, wielding affection, terror, and familial honor like a puppeteer's strings. In the next breath, Camilla shifted to seduction. She lured Tom with a vow, as unyielding as it was frigid, if he helped retrieve the ebony box from William's grasp and ensured the secret slumbered eternally, she'd bequeath him a substantial fortune, one no royal could question or contest. Tom lifted his eyes to his mother's impassive visage, the chill calculus etched there, unmistakable. He saw it plainly to Camilla. He was merely a handy pawn in this fight for survival. Yet the dread of reputational annihilation and the siren call of financial sanctuary eclipsed his conscience. An unspoken pact sealed the air between them. Camilla and Tom huddled into conspiracy mapping paths to William. She wagered he'd clutch the box and let her recklessly close, driven by filial devotion and protectiveness. Her opening gambit feigned empathy to breach his defenses, escalating to coercion and culminating in veiled threats. Meanwhile, William plunged headlong into dissecting and corroborating every detail in Diana's letter. Oblivious that he'd been marked as prey by his stepmother, he geared up for an honorable reckoning. Camilla, ever the pragmatist, braced for total war rules be damned. This chasm in their approaches foreshadowed the inexorable escalation of tensions in the chapters to come. Tom, caught in the crossfire, felt his soul fracturing. He'd betrayed his own integrity for a nebulous promise and the grip of fear. The clandestine family summit convened in a compact study at Kensington Palace, a sanctum engineered for utter seclusion, yet the air hung thick with enmity, as if the walls themselves recoiled. William entered with a veneer of composure, the ebony box's secrets a leaden burden in his grasp. Camilla awaited him, her features masked impeccably beneath flawless makeup. Only her eyes betrayed the Arctic chill and hyper-vigilant edge. This was a showdown sans witnesses, sans rules. William wasted no breath on hollow pleasantries. He laid Diana's diary upon the table, splayed open to expose her unmistakable looping script. His hand quivered faintly, not from terror, but from the profane ache of bearing his mother's raw wounds before their architect. He led with the damning evidence, quoting passages where Diana chronicled Camilla's orchestrated media sabotage, not merely as a shadowy source, but as the puppeteer paying editors to peddle smears against her in exchange for their complicit hush on Camilla's own murky dealings. Camilla's mask held firm, but the tension coiled visibly through her frame. She leaned back into the leather chair, her stare boring into William. It wasn't denial or remorse that flickered there, but the predatory calculus of a worthy adversary. In that instant, William glimpsed the futility of mining for even a shred of conscience in this woman. A silence stretched leaden and suffocating. At last, Camilla spoke, her voice a low rumble of authority laced with unmistakable menace. She sketched a nightmare tableau for William. Should he dare unleash any of this, she'd marshal her vast web of influence to recast him as the ultimate parricide. She'd leak tales of him exploiting his mother's death for political gain, shaking the bedrock of family and realm alike. Her threats pierced beyond personal honor. They lanced straight at William's line of succession, at the credibility he'd forged through years of unyielding service. She meant for him to grasp it. Bone deep, this path would exile the throne from him, forever stranding him as an eternal outcast within his own house. William's resolve hardened in the forge of outrage. He met Camilla's gaze, unflinching, his blue eyes ablaze with ferocity. He feared not the throne's forfeiture, but the truth's abandonment to injustice. A mantle of duty settled heavy on his shoulders, not merely as Diana's son, but as the crown's custodian of purity. Just as the standoff crested to a knife's edge, the two of them rigid as ancient monoliths, the door flew open with jarring abruptness. Tom Parker Bowles burst in disheveled and feigning the reluctant peacemaker. He played the part of concerned kin murmuring anxieties for both sides. On the surface it smacked of goodwill, but it was a cog in Camilla's meticulously oiled scheme. As William and Camilla's verbal sparring reignited in blistering fury, Tom slipped a compact recording device from his shirt sleeve with sleight of hand. He triggered it covertly, capturing every barbed accusation and unbridled threat Camilla hurled at William, alongside the prince's raw, emotive retorts. Tom's mission wasn't mediation, it was raw intel-gathering fodder for Camilla to splice and weaponize against William down the line. His face twisted with strain and self-loathing. He despised this espionage, but the terror of maternal annihilation compelled him onward. The conclave iced over in rupture. William issued his edict with iron finality, his tone a gauntlet thrown. He implied the unspoken: if Camilla craved open warfare, he'd wield truth as his deadliest blade. Camilla's lips curved in a smile, calculated, venomous. She knew her barbs had lodged in William's ear, but more crucially, she had Tom. With the recording now cupped in her son's palm, she fancied herself holding an ace one to twist the narrative, flipping William from aggrieved heir to the aggressor and enshrining her dominion. The true fray at long last had ignited. In the wake of the blistering confrontation, Camilla squandered not a single instant. She sprang into motion with the chill precision and velocity of a strategist honed in nocturnal triumphs. Her inaugural thrust transmute Diana's evidence into a blade turned against William himself. Camilla's counteroffensive unfolded across dual fronts, the palace's inner sanctum and the media's relentless arena. Within the royal confines, Camilla leaned on the Privy Council, that cadre of elder statesmen and high officials stewarding the crown's governance. Leveraging her storied clout and entrenched alliances, she insinuated with velvet menace that William harbored classified documents poised to fracture the monarchy's bedrock. She skirted specifics, zeroing in on his illicit concealment. The venerable advisors, ever guardians of stability and facade over verity, yielded to the inexorable pressure, an ultimatum William couldn't evade: surrender the diary and all attendant materials forthwith to the council to safeguard the security and integrity of the crown. Concurrently, the media apparatus under Camilla's veiled command revved into overdrive. Whispers leaked with artful intent and surgical subtlety. Tabloids and even more reputable outlets unfurled, insinuating op-eds hinting at William's unraveling psyche and emotional nadir in the shadow of his mother's demise. The pieces sketched a prince haunted, scheming to hawk his mother's private papers to the press for a personal scandal, a vengeful bid to exorcise familial ghosts. Rage boiled in William's chest as he devoured those screaming headlines. He pierced the cunning of Camilla's ploy, a bid to warp his motives, recasting his justice crusade as self-serving opportunism and mental maelstrom. He fired back publicly through his press office a vehement denial. "These reports are fabrications. This is my mother's sacred relic. No one has the right to touch or exploit it." Yet his riposte only knotted the snare tighter, teeing up the next salvo. Tom, under Camilla's iron directive, executed the plan's most loathsome leg. He meticulously spliced the confrontation's recording, cherry-picking William's heat-of-the-moment barbs and steely retorts. He funneled the doctored audio to one of Camilla's pet journalists. The detonation unfolded on cue. The press unleashed the tampered tape, transmuting a private parley into stark proof of William threatening the monarchy with the diary. A public already jittery from whispers of his fragility now absorbed his fury-laced voice, spawning rampant suspicion. William's paramount asset, his credibility, began to quake violently. William was herded into an exquisite double-bind, the consummate honor trap. He confronted a harrowing fork yield the diary, and into the truth, capitulating to Camilla, or face dishonorable expulsion, branded a royal renegade and stripped of succession. Every avenue funneled to apocalypse and isolation cloaked him like a shroud illuminating the brutal truth in this war. He stood solitary against an empire. Cornered with no quarter given, William grasped the inexorable truth. Compliance meant his mother's annihilation, and the truth's eternal entombment. He cast aside the spectre of disinheritance. Now a singular imperative burned in him: justice for Diana, transparency for the realm. In the solitude of his study, William executed irrevocable maneuvers. Sleepless nights blurred into a frenzy as he duplicated every page of the diary and letter, not mere photocopies, but a meticulous cataloguing of the financial threads Diana had woven. This wasn't just safeguarding against seizure, it was a silent declaration of war. He sealed the replicas and entrusted them to his most ironclad attorney and a cadre of political confidants, positioning them as truth's unyielding sentinels. Camilla, meanwhile, basked in premature triumph. She'd sown seeds of doubt in the public psyche, and the Privy Council alike, convincing herself William would buckle. She doubled down on fortifying her financial empire, locking down the accounts and charities she'd commandeered beyond any prying reach. Her hubris crested, birthing a fatal chink in her armor. It was then that William unleashed his seismic opener. He held back the full arsenal. Instead, he funneled a sliver of the most incendiary material through a neutral media conduit untethered from Camilla's strings. The leak excerpted Diana's diary with surgical precision, Camilla's deliberate sabotage of massive international aid flows from the Royal Fund, rerouted for private perks, lucrative construction, and energy contracts abroad. This transcended familial scandal. It was an indictment of grand-scale graft and power abuse, a tinderbox for diplomatic ruptures and humanitarian outrage. The kingdom quaked. In its wake, a pivotal figure emerged from the ether, upending the board entirely. Sir Alistair Finch, a retired financial advisor who had shadowed Diana in her twilight years, had watched this fray unfold with seething impotence. Reclusive in his dotage, he'd simmered in silence until William's plight and the aid manipulation's exposure cracked his restraint. Conscience demanded he rise. Sir Alistair materialized publicly in a modest yet earth-shattering press briefing. With the unflappable gravitas of a man beyond reproach, he vouched for every syllable in Diana's diary as unvarnished fact. He layered in technical minutiae, the illicit transfers, the procedural anomalies he'd once flagged to Diana in vain, the labyrinth of shell entities Camilla had spun. His testimony from a font of unimpeachable expertise supplied the missing link elevating William's claims from personal vendetta to irrefutable fiscal reckoning. Public sentiment capsized in a torrent. The major outlets, once scattered and stupefied by Camilla's fabricated fog, now latched onto a verifiable saga. Broadsheets launched deep dives into her finances, dissecting charities and global dealings with forensic zeal. Camilla, beholding Sir Alistair's resurrection and the investigative avalanche, unraveled into frenzy. She'd fixated on corralling the tabloids, blind to the peril of those who knew too much and whom she'd consigned to obscurity. Her media stranglehold shattered like brittle ice. Tom Parker Bowles, witnessing his mother's precipitous tumble and William's unrelenting rectitude, confronted a lacerating epiphany. He'd been not just exploited by her, but arrayed on history's errant side. Remorse flooded him. He revisited the unedited recording still in his possession, realizing it wasn't merely Camilla's cudgel, but his own key to atonement. The final reckoning arrived not in shadowed chambers, but on history's glaring public stage. William had chosen his arena with deliberate symbolism, a special press conference at the Palace of Westminster, far from the palace's gilded confines. The choice itself was a manifesto. He was laying truth before the nation and justice, unbound by royal ramparts. He appeared in crisp military regalia, but his gravity stemmed not from pomp, but from grief transmuted into iron resolve. Before a sea of lenses and unblinking stares, he betrayed no flicker of doubt. He opened by unveiling excerpts from Diana's diary, honing in on passages that laid bare her abject loneliness and soul-deep strife. By exposing her unvarnished fragility, William reclaimed the public's boundless empathy, restoring his mother to flesh and blood humanity, not mere icon. Then, with a resounding thud that silenced the hall, he slammed the sealed envelope Diana's letter onto the podium. The gesture crackled with theater-rippling shock through the assembly. William proclaimed aloud that the missive unmasked Camilla's machinations in full, not just infidelity, but a systematic graft to commandeer and bleed the crown's coffers dry. The timbre of truth reverberated across England. At that very hour in Buckingham Palace, an emergency Privy Council session convened in haste. The senior members, ashen amid the financial probes William had ignited, squared off against Camilla. She entered the room, bereft of her customary hauteur, encircled by suspicion and indictment. Camilla's fortress at last crumbled. As her protective web and media manipulations dissolved into ether, she unleashed a parting salvo, a desperate grasp at dominion. She shrieked, her voice laced with hysteria and venom, that, "If I fall, the throne falls with me." She meant to imply her ruin would unearth deeper rot, quaking the monarchy's foundations to dust. But the threat rang hollow. In the next breath, William, fresh from the press briefing and materializing, with audacious surprise, strode into the conclave. His intrusion into the council's sanctum was unprecedented defiance. He advanced straight to the grand table where Camilla perched, slamming a verified photocopy of the letter onto its surface. His voice rose not in volume, but in the unassailable weight of righteousness. "No Briton will only crumble if truth is interred. And my mother bequeathed this truth to me, to safeguard her honor and shield this nation from deceit." His poise and probity stood in stark relief to Camilla's unraveling, cementing his mantle as the crown's true steward. In that maelstrom's heart, the door swung wide once more. Tom Parker Bowles emerged gaunt and hollowed by remorse. He averted his gaze from Camilla, the mother who'd bent him to her will, and fixed it on William. It was absolution's final act. He stepped forward and placed the digital recorder on the table, avowing he held the unedited tape from their prior clash. It was the killing stroke. The full recording laid bare Camilla's icy timbre as she menaced William and obliquely confessed to cover-ups. Tom's betrayal, however coerced, annihilated her authority and any remnant of denial. The tide had turned irrevocable. In the days that followed, public outrage swelled into an uncontainable surge. Protests clamoring for transparent probes and Camilla's accountability erupted nationwide. With her financial secrets and political stratagems flayed open, Camilla was summarily stripped of sway and station. She found herself exiled, not just from the council, but from the family's very core. William emerged from the fray not merely victorious, but as a fresh emblem of candor and equity. He hadn't waged war for the throne, but for Diana's memory and Britain's untainted dawn. He had decreed that in this new epoch truth would forever eclipse power. What emotion lingers most powerfully in your heart after bearing witness to the clash between William and Camilla, and what do you believe ignited the fire in William to rise for the truth, even if it meant forfeiting the throne itself? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.